Is your boss bad for your health? And if you are the boss, are you bad for the workers?
Lorna Milton.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Does your boss then give you too many things to do with impossible, unachievable missions and ever-changing deadlines? Does it leave you feeling demotivated, uninspired and constantly stressed? Well, is he bad for your health? Or she bad for your health? We're about to find out and get ourselves some answers as well. Mark Shields is behind today's Expert Hour. He's a life coach from Hitchin. Welcome along.
Hi Lorna, thanks for having me.
What's the idea then behind today's Expert Hour? Why are you asking us to think about whether our boss is bad for our health or not?
Well, I mean, the truth is the life practice are getting a lot of clients that are coming in with stress-related disorders, and when you probe deeper, a lot of it's got to do with relationships with bosses. So I did some study and found quite an interesting piece of work done by somebody called Anna Nyberg, who is a resident psychologist at the Institute in Stockholm, and she came up with some very, very proven points about this very subject. So,
all right, what did she say? What did she find out?
For the first thing, I don't want to frighten anybody, but workers saddled for 4 years or more with an inconsiderate boss were 60%, would you believe, more likely to suffer a heart attack or other life-threatening cardiac conditions.
No.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to the idea of leave it at the door and don't take it home with you?
Well, exactly.
Obviously easier said than done.
Yeah, that's right. And the longer workers continue to work for these type of bosses, the worse it gets. And the study actually confirms that bad bosses have a greater negative effect than if the employee smoked, didn't get any exercise, or was overweight or had high cholesterol.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So
you're more likely, or from what she's found out, you're more likely to have a bad health. Even if you're a smoker and you're a bit overweight, your boss could be behind it all.
Your boss could be behind it all, and there's an undisputed relationship between your boss's kind of leadership style, and obviously they vary, and workers' productivity and mental health.
Obviously this is a serious issue as well.
Very much so.
We have made light of it to start with, but there are people who absolutely dread going to work. Their boss makes their life absolutely miserable.
Well, there's kind of if we can think of bosses and put, obviously there's some very good bosses out there, okay? So, but if we can put our bosses or our types of boss into 3 categories, okay? And again, this is a proven model. So we have what we call the people manager, and these type of bosses have a great sense of justice. They look after their staff, they look after their people. They're great to work for. They're extremely motivational, and they tend to be sometimes not too popular with the hierarchy, and unfortunately they can have a limited lifespan.
Right.
Okay, so that's something worth remembering. You then get the boss that's kind of the career climber. These people are difficult to find often. Nobody knows where they are, and they tend to spend a lot of time doing their boss's job, and they're very, very political. So I would suspect there's a lack of interest in their own employees. They're more concerned about getting on up the corporate ladder. And
I'm all right, Jack.
I'm all right, Jack.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're there. And then we've got terrible words, so apologies to all the bosses that are out there that may feel this is them, and we call these the dinosaurs. So these guys are waiting out their days, really. They lack motivation. They don't inspire their staff. They're just kind of doing their time.
They want that big fat pension at the end.
That's right, yeah.
That's run off on their luxury yacht round the Caribbean.
That's it.
Yeah, those kind of bosses. Yep, I get the feeling. I've known a few in my time, good and bad bosses. I think we all have, haven't we?
Yeah.
A boss can make or break a place, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's workers, all about the motivation behind the workers. But what did people say when surveyed with regards to bad habits of a boss? What was the thing that they most said, this is what my boss does really badly?
The number one was moving the goalposts all the time. So setting tasks, being very clear about what they want from their employee, perhaps delivering certain things at certain times, certain projects, and at the last minute changing them, which leaves the employee obviously confused, frustrated, sometimes angry, and they start to get a bit stressed by it all. And when it happens all the time, it can become a problem to the employee. So not good. That was the top one. 52% of people found that. The second one was unachievable targets and goals. They felt from day one they could never possibly do what their boss was asking them, and of course that creates terrible stress for people. And the last one, believe it or not, was impossible deadlines to meet.
Right.
Wanted things far too quickly. One of the things I always believed as a boss, that taking an interest in your staff was really important. So allowing your staff to develop and grow within their roles, and taking time out, spending time with them every week or every month, listening to them and finding out what turned them on, what motivated them. And again, the worst behaviour is that 40% of people said that didn't exist. Okay, so there was no staff development, there was nothing at all. In fact, they met their boss probably every 6 or 7 months. So no communication, and communication is absolutely key in that relationship.
And you say, coming into your clinic, it's on the rise, more and more people coming in with work-related issues.
It's coming in, it's on the rise, most definitely, and if you talk to and look at psychiatrists and psychologists, their clinics are full. With people with these issues, and you have to remember that your boss's relationship with you is one of the most important relationships that you have. And if it's not going well, if it's not going right, it will overlap into all other parts of your life. My advice to people, first of all, is you've got to look at your own performance. You know, I mean, as a boss, you get good people and you get bad people. So you've got to look at your own performance, and you've got to be realistic and say, okay, am I right for this job? How am I interacting with my boss? Am I being fair? Or am I spending too much time kind of sitting around the coffee machine gossiping about my bad boss to everybody else? And perhaps he's hearing those rumours and getting upset with me. So I think it's really, really important. The word here is communication.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see it from both sides of the fence, having been a boss, but there are some not so good ones out there, and especially I mentioned earlier, kind of the political climate. You get very, very little time with those people. And if you're going to develop within your role and grow, people want to learn more, they want to get on, they want to be appropriately challenged. And if you've got a non-existent boss that you never see, that enthusiasm over a period of time tends to die down a bit, and you kind of lose direction.
Mark, I think that's true, don't you? That it's not only your work that suffers, it's your family and your friends that suffer as well.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that relationship with your boss is one of the most important relationships you're going to have, and it will, escalate and intrude into your family life. You'll go home from work and you won't eat your dinner, and you'll probably want to go to bed earlier, and over a period of time, your wife or partner will be saying, what's up with you, and you won't want to be going out and doing all the things you wanted to do. So most definitely, it's just that important.
We have talked about actually talking to your boss. It may sound simple, but for some people, a very, very hard thing to do. What tips can you give us this afternoon then, Mark, to help us to improve our relationships with our bosses and actually make our life a lot easier going and more enjoyable at work? Because let's face it, we spend an awful lot of time at work.
Well, there's a whole host of different things you can do. I mean, talking to your boss is always the first thing, okay? But if you can't do that, and let's just think about this employee for a second that is struggling at work. They're going to lack confidence, so their confidence is going to be knocked for six. They're going to lack kind of self-worth. They're probably going to be sitting there thinking, I could never get another job. So I think a really good exercise, and something I've done myself, and it really works, is just to update your CV. So go back through your CV, look at all the things that you've achieved, all the jobs you've done well, look at your kind of skills and successes in the past, and just remind yourself how good you are. Very, very good for a major confidence boost.
How on earth do you get inside your boss's head? I'm intrigued now. I want to know the answer to this one.
Well, we take information and process information differently, okay?
Yeah.
Some see it, feel it, hear it. Some people are very kinesthetic, very sensitive. Other people are very visual. And the best thing is actually for somebody to have a session with an NLP practitioner, because they will teach you how to see exactly what is going on with your boss or with your wife, because NLP is very, very proven very good for relationships.
They are human beings at the end of the day, and your boss may have another boss that they account to as well. So how do you build up a successful relationship?
Well, I have to say the best thing you can do is to try and talking to your boss is one thing, but and it's very formal in the office. They may not be comfortable with that, so perhaps ask them if you can go and have a coffee with them. A lot of people do that, and just find out a bit about them. So, I mean, I always used to use some of these techniques, for example, and fire a lot of questions at my boss. Are you married? What sort of things do you do in your spare time? What's your wife's name? And kind of build a lot of rapport, get to know them. And then once you build a lot of rapport, they relax, and then just kind of share with them some of the things that you are struggling with. And what would be ideal would be to set up some form of one-to-one process once a month whereby you can air these concerns and views and they can be dealt with there and then. That technique is all about just brainstorming, so offloading onto some paper all the things that annoy you, and then having another look at it when you perhaps 24 hours later and thinking, okay, so what is on this list that is down to me? You know, what things can I change? And qualify the list so you come up with 2 or 3 constructive areas to talk to your boss about. It wouldn't be appropriate to fire everything at him or her, but the things that affect you in the workplace, in the job. And if you always say to your boss, you know, if we can get this right, I will become far more, you know, my performance will get better. I'll do a much better job. And you know, I really want to do that. I really enjoy working for you. And you'd be amazed at how many bosses didn't realise this, and they do say, okay, well, let's set up a series of meetings and we can talk, and often you can then start talking about your own development and the fact you've been in the role for a couple of years and you'd like to progress, and what your aspirations are about that progression.
When you were a boss, did people come to you and say things that you never even thought they were thinking or feeling, and you thought to yourself, if only I'd have known, I could have done something a long time before that had happened?
I was a director for a bank, okay, an offshore bank with a £200 million income target, and about 300 staff. And I made it my business because my philosophy on success was motivate staff, retain quality staff. Otherwise, you lose them eventually if you don't look after them.
I like the idea from your fact sheet as well about find a mentor within the company. I really like that idea, and I think that's something that I've done myself within the station, because I think it's always good not to have just one person's opinion, but several people's opinions as well. Yeah,
it's good to find a mentor that I mean, not your buddies around the desk, but somebody that in the organisation that will give you a good objective view about what's going on, because at least that'll tell you, you know, if it's you, they'll tell you it's you, and if it's not, they'll give you some objective advice about putting things right. I worked in the city for a bank for a while and ended up in the Channel Islands. And when you get a little bit bored at work and you're under challenged, I got something called the Red Book exercise. And I wrote in this book everybody I contacted and met and what perhaps they could do for me, help me with my career. I built up an enormous network of people from other companies, and it opened up my mind to well, there's life beyond where I am,
and I think that's what people often forget as well.
They do, yeah, and it was the most valuable thing I did, because I met so many interesting people. Life is bigger than where employees currently are. They don't believe it because they feel cocooned in their role. But it's a big world out there, and it's good to kind of interact with it and find out what else is out there and go and do it if necessary.
And there are many. I mean, since I started on the afternoon show about 3 years ago now, I get at least 2 emails once a week from all sorts of different business groups that have sprung up out of nowhere in the 3 counties. Networking is this buzzword, but it's the way forward, it appears, and the amount of people that go to networking meetings and the amount of new groups that are opening across the 3 counties. If you want to find your local one, honestly, just pop networking and where you live into a search engine on the internet. It will pop up, and people swear by them, that they are the best things to go to.
They are a brilliant idea. They do a lot of breakfast meetings. You can join lots of clubs. If people are, let's try and picture this person that's got no confidence, struggling, getting upset, put up with this for a while. A great thing, just buy a Red Book from Smith's, start slowly, start looking at what's out there, and then just from your home, just start making a few phone calls. It'll escalate. I ended up with about 40 different names.
Did you?
Yeah, I did, yeah. Still got it, actually.
And what's come out of today's Expert Hour is the fact that if you're not going to change it unless you help yourself, you've got to do it. Your boss does, although he may be bad for your health, he doesn't have all the answers.
And also, it's not on his agenda, perhaps, to change it unless you're a valid employee and he wants more out of you.
Mark Shields is our life coach from the Life Practice in Hitchin. He'll be back again with us on the afternoon show shortly. If you'd like to request one of our free fact sheets today, find out if your boss is bad for your health and what you can do about it, you can email through the website. Do not be stressed. Do not take it home with you, and do not take it out on the rest of your family. Do something about it. As Mark says, only you can change the situation.